Hi, friends. Welcome to episode 353 of School Librarians United. I am your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a school librarian in my 19th year, I knew I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself, my interview guests, and listeners who reach out to the podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. I welcome you and all listeners to reach out with your feedback and episode suggestions. You can reach me on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter. My handle is at @LMS_United. On Threads and Instagram, you can find me at School Librarians United and on Blue Sky at SLU Podcast, or the email address schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, I'll be sure to send you a podcast sticker. One quick programming note for listeners who were expecting our episode on conflict resolution, experts chime in. Due to the demands of multiple schedules, that episode will air next week, Friday, February 20th. And now for today's episode, Changing Spaces and Learning Lessons, back from Kenya and ready for Phase 2, and my conversation with the founding members of Librarians Building Libraries, Tom Bober, Amanda Jones, and Andrea Trudeau. Friends, I can't wait to share this conversation with you today. We are in for such a treat. We've got three incredible library leaders who are no stranger to the show. Together, the three of them have recorded 16 episodes, and I'm grateful for every visit that they've made to the podcast to share their expertise. Tom Bober, Amanda Jones, and Dr. Andrea Trudeau, thank you and welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Amy.
Yay!
Hi. So I'm so grateful you're here. Would you just do a real quick introduction? Let's start off with Tom. If people haven't heard your previous 4 visits on the show, just give us an idea where you hail from in the country and what do you do every day?
I am in the suburbs of St. Louis, Missouri. I am the librarian at an elementary school, Captain Elementary, and I am 1/3 of Librarians Building Libraries.
Excellent. Amanda Jones, you've been on the show 7 times, and I am always grateful to have a few moments of your time. You are in demand. Amanda, when you are not globetrotting, please share with us, what do you do every day?
I obsess about saving my public library. No, I'm a school librarian. This is my 25th year working as a school librarian at the same school that I attended as a child. And that is my day job. And my night job is running grassroots alliances to try to protect the libraries.
Absolutely. And you have the premium platinum status to prove it. I don't envy the traveling that you've had to do, but I know that there are a lot of audiences who have been very grateful that you have been able to share and be with them in person to inspire. Dr. Andrea Trudeau, we've got 5 episodes together, and I have been so grateful to be a part of your professional growth as you have expanded your expertise and managed to share and impart that with us as well. So, Andrea, would you let us know, what do you do by day?
Hi, Amy. So I'm a no-shush librarian who works in a middle school just north of Chicago, Deerfield District 109. It's my 28th year in the building, but my 11th year as the librarian. And just so excited to be here and share the work that we've done for Librarians Building Libraries today.
Friends, anytime you meet 3 people as generous as these 3, you want to make sure that their generosity has been shared with our listening audience. And you're going to learn, if you have not heard their earlier episode, Librarians Building Libraries, which aired March 7th of 2025, which was really almost about to the year, about 3 weeks to the year. We heard an inspiring story and an aspiration to build libraries around the world, starting with Kenya. And so episode 311, if you have not heard that, it is an absolute just message of hope And I want to know, following up, where this all went. The last time we talked, and especially friends, if you don't follow these three people on social media, some of this will be new. But Librarians Building Libraries, this past summer, the three of you made that trip. We saw those photos, those blog posts, short videos, and I want you to start us off and let us know what that experience was like for you and the students that you were there for.
Well, we did it. No, I think
Yay!
I think that's the biggest thing, because honestly, when we first talked to you, Amy, in March, this was all still a work in progress. And so the fact that we made the trip, and with 16 suitcases of books and library supplies, was it more than that, Andrea? You tell me how.
I think it was like
I can't
22.
remember.
It was with
I
the
know they were heavy.
carry-ons. It was a lot. Almost like a ton.
But the fact that we made it there and had 3 weeks to reframe and reset this room full of books that we walked into what we would describe as an actual library, I think was really special and incredible. I know for us in many ways, but we also think for the students that we got a chance to spend time with and learn from for the 3 weeks we were there.
Well, I'll say that when we started this, it just seemed so abstract. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we're gonna do this." But then we did it. I think I texted y'all not too long ago. I was like, "We did that." And we're still doing that. It was just to have an idea, like, Andrea brought us this idea of this school that needed a library, and we just kind of said, "Okay," and we did it, and I don't know, I'm kinda proud of us, but I think we learned a lot about each other and ourselves, and we learned a lot about other libraries that aren't as fortunate as ours, and I will say that I know they thanked us when we left, but I can never repay them and thank them for the lessons that I learned while I was over there.
And for me, it was just really amazing to get back to Kenya. So I had been there in 2022, serving as a Fulbright Hays Scholar, and spent about 3 weeks at the Jane Adeni Memorial School, and left feeling so inspired. I thought that experience would be sort of like checking a box, and it would be great and I would move on with my life. But as I've said to Tom and Amanda, there is like a chunk of my heart that is buried in East Africa, and I have to keep visiting it. I'll be back in Tanzania this summer coming up. I mean, I can't stay away from this region of the world. And so it was very interesting to return to the school and stay on campus, because last time we stayed at a nearby hotel and then were, bussed in each day. So to actually be there and immersed even more this time, it was more than just working in this library. I sponsor a girl there, and she immediately took us under her wing, almost mothering us. And we got opportunities to make chapati with the girls, which is a traditional East African delight. I love it. It's one of my favorite foods. It's sort of like if a pita and a tortilla got together. I don't know. So that was amazing, making that with them. They invited us to their Saturday night dance party, which, apparently they don't invite many adults, but there we were watching them do this zombie dance. And I even got to run with Kenyans, which, as someone who used to run marathons, that the Kenyans know how to run. And there I was. They wanted to go running with me. And I'm like, this must look like a spectacle. This one middle-aged white woman running with 20 Black Kenyan women in this field with cows and people all around. It was pure magic, truly. It's so special.
We grow in wisdom, that's our vision, colors of a nation.
Well, and I think everyone tuning in right now has been in the situation where we've walked into some other space. We've walked into another space that is a library, and we've been a little sort of, I don't want to say critical. We've been like, what would I do differently in this space? And I have to imagine that from the moment you got there, Andrea, in 2022, that you walked into a space and said, oh, I could make some changes in this space. It would not be hard, but my gosh, it's going to take some money. And it's going to take the, assistance of more than one person. And yeah, I've, as somebody who has walked into a library, and I've felt like, oh, I think we can do better. It's going to take time and money and other people to help me.
Yeah, and it wasn't the focus of the trip when I first went. So it was interesting because the founder of the school, Dr. Teresa Wasonga, is very proud of her library and wanted me to see it the moment I stepped foot on the campus in 2022. And it wasn't until I invited her to come to my library space to speak to my students that she realized the potential of a library, because her space was beautiful. It had these huge shelves, it had a lot of books. And so it was sort of a traditional idea of a library. But when she came in and saw this like flexible, human centered, dynamic space that really looked at like supporting the whole child, she looked at me and she's like, I want this at the Jane and Eddie Memorial School. And I mean, I think that's what's so important with any of these tasks. Like, we cannot go in as people from the United States and come in and think that we know what's best. You have to really go in with a listening ear and meet people where they're at and help fulfill their vision, because they know their community best. And we just want to bring our skills as librarians, but help them fulfill like their dreams and vision for the space.
Well, and I want to hear, because, obviously this isn't a one person undertaking. Librarians Building Libraries, you've got Tom Bober and you've got Amanda Jones, both of whom are incredibly and well revered in the profession. What kinds of, when you brought this team together, how did you pull on each other's expertise to make this happen?
So I think in kind of broad strokes, I think we do bring, I don't know if we bring different skills, but I think we do play different roles. Like I feel like Andrea brings the heart of this organization, and she is kind of the heart of the organization. I feel like Amanda brings the big ideas and like the big swings and like, let's do this and let's see how this works. And I'd like to think that I do some more of like the logistics and the fine tuning and those types of things. But the truth is that as much as that may be true for kind of getting us ready, when we were actually there for those 3 weeks, if you would have been there with us, most of the hours of our day were spent either in the library working and organizing and weeding and doing those things, or sitting in the guest house in kind of one room on some couches and trying to talk through what we needed to do for the next day, or where we were in this process, or how we were going to pace out to make sure that we finished on time. And I think you're right in the sense that no one person could have done this from the time spent, right? We needed 3 people on the ground to do this for this amount of time. But I also think the thing that happened during those weeks is, while we were in the library, we were really figuring out, based off of, like Andrea said, Teresa's vision of what this library would be, what we were learning from these students while we were there, and then what was kind of the reality on the ground, given like how kids were going to interact with this space based off of all of those things. And we had to have a lot of conversations around, how do we organize things? Where's this going to go? Does this leave? How do we have this conversation with Dr. Wasonga about getting rid of these books? Like there was that element that we all 3 had to come in and support each other in those conversations and bring all of that library experience. So I totally agree with Andrea and with really the foundational core of this group, which is we need to be listening to the people that we are trying to help and understanding what they need, what they want, and where they want to be. I also think that then what we do is filter all that through the library experience that we have and work with each other to make it happen.
So I played a lot of sports growing up. So to me, every day was like what I was used to growing up playing sports. Like we had in the morning we'd get up, okay, who's gonna do what? And we'd all just kind of take control of something that needed to be done that day. And like maybe Tom would go down first, or we'd all go down together or whatever. But we all had our tasks in our head of what we wanted to do. And we all made sure that it was what Dr. Wasonga wanted us to do and what the girls wanted in their library. And then we would go and do it, and sometimes we'd listen to music out loud, sometimes we'd listen with our AirPods, and sometimes We'd discuss what we were doing as we were doing it. And then it was like in the evenings, it was kind of like, after the game, and you sit there, what worked and what didn't work today, and what do we need to change for tomorrow? And I think we each did have our own strengths, and I think they played off well together. But I think all three of us, every single day, we always brought up the fact that we wanted to make sure that we were completing Dr. Wasanga's vision. Like we did not want to be the three white people that went into the school and said, "We're gonna come save you," because they already had books, but their books needed some help. So we were trying to help them, but we wanted to help them in the way that they wanted it and needed it the best. And so listening was so important. And as someone who doesn't listen very well, a talker, not a listener, I had to learn a lot of lessons and listen. I also had to learn to listen from Tom and Andrea because I'm so used to, when you're a school librarian, I'm the only one at my school, so I do what I want. So I had to say, "Okay, what does Tom think about this? What does Andrea think about this?" And sometimes I didn't agree and sometimes I did, and but it's just differences in styles. It wasn't like, and so there was huge lessons learned, I mean, for me as a person and as a librarian, but ultimately creating that vision for the girls at that school, I feel like we succeeded. I feel like we took something that they had, got their input, got funds that they needed, and helped them create something that they wanted and needed for their school that could be, kind of go for years and sustain itself for a while.
And I just want to say, like, I think we kind of rocked the boat a little bit too. So when we were creating this library, this is a part of the world where not everybody has access to a library. When you go to a bookstore, it's not, there are not many books for pleasure that are available, especially for children. It's just textbooks and these little readers that are really more academic because everything is driven by these exams. So Dr. Wasonga really wanted a library that not only housed the textbooks available to the girls to help in their studies, but also to promote this like love of literature and reading. And when we first got in there and started weeding books, and there was this pile of discards in the corner, that was very difficult because you have girls coming in, and this is a part, like 95% of these girls are on scholarship. They're extremely impoverished, like way more impoverished than anything we can imagine here in the United States without all the supports that we have here in the United States. And so they come in and see this pile of books and are wondering, what are these crazy Americans doing? And then we started adding things like decorations on the wall and putting things on display and having games and a calming corner. And, there was kind of this mix of like wonder, curiosity, concern, excitement. But by the time we kind of reopened it at the end and everyone came in, I mean, we had Dr. Wasanga's sister come in, I'll never forget it, and she just stood there and gasped, and she, like, didn't even have the words to share, like, how amazing this space was. And then one of, the women who helped around the campus, was an alum of the school, training to be a teacher, she was so excited and took so many pictures and videos, and she's like, "I'm sharing these with all my classmates who went here. They're going to be so jealous that the library wasn't like this when they were here." And so it just like, I mean, I had to like go in the corner and like well up a little bit several times because it made such a difference. And I just got a letter actually from my student that I sponsor there, and she said the girls are still upkeeping the library. They are still very much loving it. She thanked us again, and it's a magical space now for them, a space of community and belonging.
The freedom forever, then forever, to grow in wisdom.
Well, and I'm going to say it makes me rethink anytime somebody has ever said to me, well, you're discarding those books. Why don't we just donate them to like schools in Africa? And, I'll be honest, when I grabbed it, God, I was teaching elementary and I was teaching my students about mobile libraries and libraries that traveled and they showed a lot of pictures of libraries that were built out of the back of vans that would travel around, in many cases, Africa. And they would put all the books out on blankets and the kids could come and check out books. And I thought, wow, we have some of those books. And I was like, you know why? Because when we're done with our books, oftentimes the assumption is, somebody could really benefit from these books that we no longer want. Let's send them to Africa. And it was embarrassing to realize that a solution that somebody thought was a good idea was like, wow, we really aren't helping if that is what our idea of helping is.
I had a lot of strong thoughts about that while I was there. Um, because you get in there and you look, and the books that they had were those Reader's Digest bound editions from the 80s and 90s that, my grandma had on the shelf. And there were some hidden gems in there. I mean, there really were some hidden gems in there, but I would say the majority of the books, I mean, it was like stuff from the 60s and 70s. I think, what did we find? One book from 1895. Like, it was, and then the thing that got me is when we and when we as I know myself as a librarian in the United States, we have policy, so I have to stamp discard in my books when I get rid of it. And I understand that's my policy and I have to do that. But then if I send those books over, I looked at a lot of the books that they had, they all said reject and discard. And what kind of message is that sending to kids? Like, you're the rejects, you're the discards, like, this is all you deserve. And some people will say, oh, well, having something is better than nothing. But I mean, okay, but like the amount of money that it takes to ship crap books over there, you can send really good books over there. I mean, so, and again, it goes back to, also, it's an all girls school of Black women, and so we did not see the they weren't reflected in the stories. There was not any Black girl magic. It was all like how-to manuals and Reader's Digest business, and they just deserved more than that.
Shortly after you got back, the school year starts. How did that trip impact how you looked at yourself as a librarian, your library program, and your students?
As someone who has been in my library for 11 years now, I had entered the space, and it was very traditional when I entered the space, and I knew I kind of had to shake things up. So it was really interesting for me to almost like come back full circle to that experience, because I present on now an international stage and talk about how the library is the heart of the school. It's this place of belonging. There's all these things we can do to make it human-centered. But I was really speaking from my one experience in my one building where, full transparency, I had been a teacher for a long time. So when I entered that library and wanted to do some wacky things, people already knew me and trusted me, and it was pretty easy to do. But I know of other librarians who have tried to do these in places and it doesn't always work out because it's all about building those relationships. So for me, it was kind of a fun exercise in, can we do this again? And like, can we do this on the other side of the world? And the answer is yes. And it gets back to the same sort of formula, going in with a vision, in this case, supporting the vision of this founder, going in with some wacky ideas that kind of break the mold a little bit, but most importantly, going in with this notion of human-centeredness and creating a sense of belonging. And not just in things like the calming corner in the games, but as Amanda mentioned, making sure that there are mirrors. When we started putting those books on display with Black faces, they were gone. Like, the girls were so excited. They devoured the books. They were dying for these books. And so it all gets back to me that the library truly is the heart of a community. It's truly the space for belonging in so many different ways. So it was really cool to kind of do that again.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, Andrea, that like that idea of what we did those 3 weeks, it was taking like when I walked into my library 16, 17 years ago and started to rework it. But something that I took maybe 2 to 3 years to do, we did in 3 weeks with 3 of us on the ground. So it was fast and furious, but it was that kind of reworking from the ground up, something that you walk into, have to assess the situation and make these decisions, and yet know that there's going to come a point, unlike our own libraries, where we're going to be walking in the next day and the next day and the next, Here we knew there was an endpoint, that we knew there was a day that we were leaving, and we needed to have it at a spot where it was quote unquote finished, even though we've got some ideas for next steps for them. So one thing that really I was left with after leaving after those 3 weeks was the community aspect of those students. Those girls were tight-knit and in all the best ways. They supported each other. They also kind of kept tabs on each other. They held each other responsible. But they also did this in really what I would describe as this loving, supportive way. That's what I saw during those 3 weeks. And it did make me come back into my library and think, okay, I cannot control what that looks like outside of my library, right? I mean, that really maybe is more my principal, other administrators, classroom teachers. But when we talk about community and how things work within the library, that really helped me look at how we are interacting with each other in a different lens. How, when we have a group conversation, how do we support each other and have conversations in kind and supportive ways? And those are things, there's just been little bits of language to try to promote that this year. And it really did come from those 3 weeks over in Kenya and what I saw there.
I think what's remarkable is when I think about, I'm listening to all of these amazing experiences that you had, and I know that there are people tuning in right now who have generous spirits. And I know that everyone tuning in right now has at some point in their adult life and growing up has volunteered their time, maybe for an organization or for their church or for their school. I know when my kids needed their service hours, we all drove down to downtown Detroit to a food distribution center, and we clocked in hours working to box up canned goods for distribution for the community. And never at any point did I question if this was a good use of my time, but I absolutely never at any time got to use my expertise as a school librarian. I was there in manual labor. My children and I all showed up. We clocked our hours, and then we went home. And there wasn't anything remarkable about what we accomplished because, to be fair, we could have also donated money. We chose to donate time, but there was nothing special about what I bring to that experience. And in this case, the three of you brought the years of expertise of creating and curating and inspiring readers in your library spaces, and you poured that into singularly this one very focused, special, inspiring corner of the world, which will continue to have that residual, that impact is going to carry over because those students saw how lovingly you put together and with what great thought you put into generating this amazing space where all of them could grow and learn. And that's still happening every day because of the expertise that you brought when you gave of yourselves. So I'm curious, what has been the impact of the work that you've done for building this library in Kenya?
So I think it's obviously impacted the school community and is inspiring students to use this space and, read more and engage more with each other. And I think with our Calming Corner, many of them are recognizing the importance of, mental health and social emotional learning. When we were planning for this trip, I asked Dr. Wasonga, how are these girls dealing with trauma? Because many of them come to the school with immense trauma. They're orphans, they've been raped, they have seen their parents pass away in front of them in horrible accidents, just atrocities. And she said to me, they just go into a room and they scream. And so what was fascinating was when we built the Calming Corner, they were really tentative at first. They're like, what is this? What is this? What are these people bringing to us? But that ended up becoming such a popular corner, even for the teachers, because on the final day, there was this big sort of ceremonial goodbye. And they had an open mic where people could come up and share their thank yous and thoughts. And one of the teachers was like, I didn't realize how much I needed this. Thank you so much. And so I think in a place where mental health is really not in schools and kind of reserved only for those with extreme needs, I think there's more of an awareness of that need. I think what's also really amazing is since we've left, Dr. Wasanga has mentioned that several neighboring schools and officials from the Ministry of Education have come and visited her school, and they're now seeing what's possible. Because again, there's this very traditional mindset of libraries. So then people are visiting and seeing like, oh, we can do this. We can put them on display. We can have games. We can have kids talking and laughing in the library. It doesn't just have to be a place of study. And now it's almost like Johnny Appleseed. It's just spreading everywhere. And so I don't think we're ever going to know how far our impact goes from this one project. And I think that is the part that just gives me the chills. It's really so powerful.
I was thinking about, and this starts off falling away from the trip, but it comes back. There's a young woman that I know who is studying science now, and I'm friends with her family. And the mom can point to literally one specific book that child checked out from the library and got that student interested in the sciences and led her down the path that she is going down right now. And as a matter of fact, the mom tracked down that book and gave it to her as a graduation gift. I think that is a very specific representation of the power of that libraries have. I also think that when you then take that and transfer it to the school that we were at, and as Andrea said, they're very focused in on the academics that lead to success in these tests, and they do a very, very good job with that. I think bringing in organization to the library so you can find stories, so you can find information, bringing in online resources that they were able to access to even gather more information so students can just wonder and explore and experience. I just hope that we have many opportunities for kids to pick that one book off of the shelf and have that impact that even in a fraction of the way of the young woman that I just mentioned earlier. I think we talk about how books have power, but we have to make a space where kids can get to that information, can get to those stories for that power to actually kind of be transferred. And I think that some of the work that we did this summer helped that happen.
White for peace, we work together as one team.
And I think, kids are like sponges and they soak it up, these experiences. But I noticed about the girls at this school. They really soaked up everything. Like they soak up everything in life. And they're so joyful and they're so happy and they're so thankful for being able to go to that school that for me to be able to help them in any way was just so rewarding. I felt selfish because I just felt like I was being rewarded the whole time because it's like at home, sometimes we struggle, to get kids interested. These kids it was like a desert and like we were, like they were soaking up every like bit of moisture. Like, I don't, that's a horrible analogy, but I just think about when we first arrived there, their library space, they take off their shoes before they go in, and there would be 1 or 2 pairs of shoes outside the door. After 3 weeks, we would wake up and we're like, "Okay, let's go down and see if anybody's down at the library." And, like, the piles and piles of shoes outside the door was just, like, amazing because you knew that they were all in there using the space, and they were soaking it all up. They were every book, everything in the calming corner, every stick together mosaic and coloring and game, and they just were so appreciative, and so to be able to help that, to me, just I don't know, I felt so selfish, like I'm getting so much joy out of this, but I'm so thankful that we were welcomed in the way I'm so thankful that Dr. Wasanga trusted us and that we were able to help in some way, in just a small tiny bit, help that the girls at that school, and I think that they do. They in turn give back. And again, I wanna just I know I've said it a million times, but the joy that they brought every single day in their lives, and they would sing, they had a room that they would sing and practice their choir. Their self-appointed choir that they made their own choir, and they would sing, and sometimes I would just be putting labels on books, and I would just stop and listen to them sing. and think, gosh, I'm sitting here in Kenya listening to these beautiful women sing and putting labels on books. And I don't know, it was surreal to me. The whole experience was amazing.
And I just want to add too, kind of along those lines of the girls being in the space and taking ownership of the space. When they had a break time in the afternoon, I think from like 4 to 5, which was after their studies and just before they had to go have their dinner. And it's their free time. So, some of them will be sitting and gabbing, some of them will be reading. A lot of the girls took it upon themselves to come to the library and help us. So they would be mopping the floors. They were like very inquisitive about how we were like color coding all of the books. And Tom trained a bunch of them. And so the next thing we know, we have like mini librarians who are now color coding all our nonfiction. And they were really curious. And many of them, I know that some of the girls when I was there in 2022 operated as librarians, but I think some new librarians were born over those weeks because of the work we were doing. So that was really exciting too.
I know listeners are curious, and where do we go from here? What is the next step for Librarians Building Libraries? What are the next steps for you, and how are you hoping to take those next steps?
So phase one of our project was more about getting the resources, like books and Common Quarter and supplies and things like that out there. But while we were there, Dr. Wasanga and her sister actually impressed upon us the need for more furniture and some things to make it more of a inviting space. So I think as phase two for our JAMS project, we're now pivoting to raising money to create furniture. So phase two is looking at raising money to send money so that the school can hire their own artisans within the community in order to put that money back into their own community, but have their local artisans build the furniture specifically to meet their needs. And then after we, do that, we're looking to the future for a new school project.
Yeah, and so our hope is in order to fund this second phase for JAMS, we're going to be hosting a webinar, which will be recorded and released on Monday, March 1st. And so, in order to fulfill what Amanda just mentioned, this idea of supporting the local economy and having craftsmen build furniture, we're going to need funding. So, we exhausted much of our funding for the phase one. And as we finished that project, we realized there were still some lingering needs. So things like comfortable furniture, we needed additional book easels and books. So we're going to be sending some materials over. I have a shipper that I've used in the past who's very reliable, but it's going to take several months to get everything over there. So at this point, we're hoping that people who support our organization can help just raise an awareness of the work that we're doing, help support by funding this phase two, and we're going to see what more we can do in this space. And this will be sort of the conclusion of the Jane and Dundee Memorial Project.
Well, and can I just say, as somebody who has come to know and respect and love the three of you, I have full faith and confidence when I make my donation that the funds that I donate are going directly to this community to support this dream that you've had, and to see it move into its next stage where the students are, this has become their third space. This has become their third space for them. And to build on all of the good work that you've done requires an investment to allow the changes that need to be made. And I love that you're using the local artisans to bring this back into the community that surrounds the school. And so, no, and I there is where I feel really good about making a contribution to Librarians Building Libraries, because I know that the work you've done has laid the groundwork so that all of this, the funding, is going to go directly back into supporting all the amazing work that you did last summer.
And Amy, if I can just add, if anybody is just curious to visually see what we've done, what we did while we were over there, we do have our website. And so we have uploaded some videos, we've uploaded some pictures of what we've done. And then on our website, there's also, we blogged. So we blogged the whole time over there. So everyone can go to our blog, which is, we all took turns writing, and everyone can read every step of the way from the moment we got there till the day we left. And then we'll be posting blogs soon about future projects.
Thank you so much, Amy. Yeah, we've had an outpouring of folks who have wanted to help in different ways. And as much as we'd love to take like an army of librarians with us on these trips, the reality is that we're still kind of a baby organization and just getting off the ground. So right now, it's really important that you follow along with us. Visit us at buildinglibraries.org. Check out our socials. We're posting regularly on Blue Sky and Instagram. And as Amanda and Tom have mentioned, we did some blogging. So we're also on Substack. So you can kind of see what we're up to. We do need to raise funds for the final phase of our project. So on March 1st, we are going to be releasing a recorded webinar. And part of that is going to ask for folks. We want to tap into everybody's expertise and what they have available. So we would love to host another silent auction where people might be willing to donate their time. Maybe you're willing to give an online presentation for an hour. And Amy Herman, thank you so much for doing that. I think Connecticut gobbled up that amazing contribution, and you got to spread your knowledge to the Connecticut librarians. And, things like autographed books, just anything for us to generate funds. So we're looking for people to make donations through funding, but also through their time or through objects they have of value that will help us get the funding that we need to support the final phase of this project.
And if any authors are listening to us, people gobbled up the autographed books. So if you would like to donate an autographed book or a 20-minute author visit for a school librarian can gobble up, we're taking donations of autographed books and your time. And so anyone listening that would like to donate physical, books or webinars or things like that, email us.
Well, and I'll just tell you right now, I will, again, donate a webinar for any organization that would like for me to come and speak to them. I'll also, if you are doing anything this summer, I will be happy to be a keynote and come to your conference. I just simply ask that you provide the airfare and the hotel, and I will show up with bells on, and we can record an episode of your members. I'm happy to do a concurrent session, and I'm happy to do a keynote.
From the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much, Amy.
Happy to help. Looking past the phase 2 of working on contributing to jams and this library that you have built, where do you see Librarians Building Libraries going forward?
I think the vision has always been that we take this first experience and we learn from it and we apply it to the next. And so we are grounded in that foundation of listening and learning and understanding needs, and then doing our best with our library experience to address those needs. We're going to be looking at, and we are looking at, another school in another part of the world that needs help and needs librarians to come in and help students access all the joy and the story and the information that libraries have to offer. And yeah, we'll be moving forward with that really soon and have more news really soon. I'm excited about it.
Fantastic. Your generosity knows no bounds. And I'm here for the ride. Please note, anytime you want to share the good news of the work that you're doing beyond the walls of the library which you work, please know you have an open invitation. I can't wait to hear where this journey goes next. I'm here for it. Please know, friends, we are not done. Librarians Building Libraries are going to continue their adventures, and when they do, we will be here to learn and how we can support them in these good works and acts of service. Thank you so much, Tom, Amanda, and Andrea. We'll follow you on social media, and I can't wait to hear from you soon.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Friends, don't forget to visit the show notes of this and every episode for links to free resources and social media for our guests. If you found this episode helpful, please share it out with your team, your PLN, and on social media. Be sure to follow on your favorite podcatcher so you'll never miss an episode. And if you really like listening today, consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews help others find us. If you're curious to know how often your state or country has been featured on the podcast, then simply click on the link that can be found in the show notes, search title, author, state, and country, and do a Command F search. I hope this is the year you consider being a guest on the show. Please visit the FAQs in every episode and you'll realize just how easy it is. We all have something to share. Make 2026 your time to shine. The topic of our next episode is conflict resolution. Experts chime in, and my panel of veteran school librarian leaders, Casey Hoffman-Blaylock, Becky Calzada, Blake Hopper, Heather Horner, Maura Madigan, and Courtney Pentland. I hope you will tune in.